can you give me a copy of your most recent risk analysis as it pertains to technology? Like, I don't have to have all of it. Just show me the parts I need to see. And they give me this look like I caught them like coming to class without their homework.
My dog ate my risk analysis.
Yeah.
Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right. Protect your patients day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right.
So, Donna, I have a question for you that maybe you have the answer to.
Okay, you didn't warn me about this before we started recording, so now I'm like,
I'll make it easy. I'll make it yes or no question. So, does HIPAA apply to other entities besides hospitals and doctors?
yes, David, yes, it does.
Another yes or no. Could it possibly apply to CPA firms?
Yes, indeed, it can.
Do you have evidence of that?
We do have that today. It's special for today.
It is, yeah. So in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about a CPA firm that had to deal with some OCR issues because of a ransomware attack.
Yeah, it's when we get these settlements, used to, all of them were a little different, but now lately, because there's so many, they kind of blend together. But this one stands out. For we generally try to find why they stand out, and the CPA thing.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll be talking about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about business associates, and we haven't talked about them in a little while, so we'll go back through that again to talk about that, because it's important to understand. Just because you're not quote unquote in healthcare doesn't necessarily mean that you are not a HIPAA business associate, and HIPAA applies to you.
Yes, HIPAA is contagious. You can catch it. The CPA firm caught it. Yeah. All right. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Where are you going?
I was going to say, you have a question here, so I didn't know is this a question that you wanted to go over, or is it from It's
from the FAQ. They released a couple of FAQs, and they added one and updated one, and I don't know. So there's one about value-based care arrangements, so accountable care organizations and all that. They added guidance under the FAQ that says if you've got two different providers that are part of an accountable care organization or some other kind of value-based care arrangement, you can share between providers if those providers are both providing services to the individual. So that doesn't mean I can go look at everybody's record in that accountable care just because I can. Doesn't mean I should. So, but that's what it was added for. And then, so it's just saying that that's treatment. The things that they're doing in the value-based care and where they might be sharing in between them, that's considered under the treatment exclusion for additional consent. And then I couldn't tell. It looks like the only thing they did under right of access was to say that you can get your consent forms, copies of your consent forms as part of the designated record set. And I'm like, I don't know. It was something that it wasn't important enough at this time for me to go down that rabbit hole as to the importance of making that change. But I'm sure somebody else knows it, and I had to know something else at that point, like the CPA firm.
Right.
So I do want to point that out. There are two of those changes, and it's important to note that it did add something to what falls under treatment, and it did add something, I believe, this consent form, which I'm like reading along and trying to find what's different. And from what I can tell, that's it. But why? I don't know. And I didn't go down the rabbit hole, I'll confess. I got too much else to do. So anyhow, that's it. And then we're ready to get on to our CPA firm. Story.
Yeah, I did the same thing as you. I read it, and it's, when people update things, I wish they would say, this is what we updated. Otherwise, I've got to go figure it out. You say you updated it, but what's different?
They even say,
you make me do all the legwork.
This is updated in their email, and but it's still like you still want to figure it out and be able to match things up, and that was not working out for me.
Yeah,
but I gotta go back. But for now, what matters is that you can go look at the FAQs.
That's right.
And look for the announcement if you're working in those areas. But the big topic for today is the OCR's 15th ransomware enforcement action and 10th risk analysis initiative action.
Yeah. Dropped today.
Yeah. I was like, I got to go get the notes ready. And I was going to talk about something else. And boom, went in my email. This was here. I'm like, let's get her done, David. Get her done.
Well, that's because OCR realizes that we don't record on Fridays anymore, so they don't drop them on Fridays now. They drop them on Mondays.
So we got fresh meat.
That's right. Yeah, but it is interesting because, again, CPA firm, we don't see this very often. That not that we don't see CPA firms being business associates, but we don't necessarily see them in enforcement actions.
I don't know that we have. There may have been a case because sometimes CPA firms operate as collections firms, so they would have a lot more data. But this one is, it's a company, BST code, BST. They're in New York's capital region, like in the Albany area up there. Almost said Albany because that's the way the original old Southerners would say it down there. But in the Albany area of New York, their website, it looks like over 100 people, CPAs, consultants. They're doing all kinds of stuff. So we're not talking about, the two guys in the strip mall kind of scenario, which might explain the $175,000 payment and the 2-year corrective action plan, because it looks like they're well established, but their size makes me think that they would have this covered better than it looks like they did. So,
yeah.
But it looks like the OCR Paula Standards quote is pointing out the foundational step of a risk analysis. Mm-hmm. You want to cover the quote?
Yep. So she says, a HIPAA risk analysis is essential for identifying where EPHI is stored and what security measures are needed to protect it. Completing an accurate and thorough risk analysis that informs a risk management plan is a foundational step to mitigate and prevent cyber attacks and breaches. And then she mumbled under her breath, "Come on, folks. What's wrong with y'all? Why do I gotta keep saying the same thing?"
Yeah, it's just, that's why we're getting to the point on these where they're not a lot different. No, but we have always said the number one thing everybody does wrong is failure to do a proper risk analysis.
Yeah. I have to say though, not just for Miss Paula, but everyone before her, it amazes me how many ways they can say the same thing, because every single time they have to say something about the risk analysis not being done.
And it's, I don't know, but if well, first of all, you could have just listened to us. But now, now you can also listen to OCR making it clear that people are doing this wrong. We have an episode we did on how to do an SRA, the 7 steps, what to do, and kind of take you through them. And I'm about to roll out a new course on doing the SRA with the ONC tool, because their course says here's how it works. And I always, when I used to write code, I can tell you how it works, can't tell you how to use it. So, 2 different things. But, for this, it's if you have in your head, and I would wager that of the 10 here who've had the enforcement initiative, the pleasure of being part of the enforcement initiative, how many of those would say that they did do a risk analysis if you had asked them before they were informed that they did?
Mm-hmm.
All 10, probably. At least 8. Some of them might have gone, what's a risk analysis? They just do their gap analysis, or they do a, scan of the network. And it is not what people have always thought it is, which is why it's always been a problem. And so anyway, soapbox put away. But the CPA angle here is what we really want to talk about. And that HIPAA, just a little touch of PHI and you're in. So I can't even configure. I can't figure out how, okay. So it says in the announcement and the settlement that they were receiving PHI for tax prep and planning.
Mm-hmm.
But why? I mean, I work with other CPA firms, and many of them, and they were like, I don't want to see it. I don't want you to talk to me about it. I just want to see the financials that you spit out of the company, no details on where that money, I don't want to get involved in that. Mm-hmm. So they are able to do the taxes without PHI. I can't figure it out. So either they're doing something unique in the way that they do their taxes, or there's something left out in the, how what work they were doing.
Could it potentially be bookkeeping related? I mean, would that?
Well, if they were, but it said they were doing tax prep and planning.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. That's it. So, I know plenty of folks that make it their mission to be able to draw that line really strongly, because they're not advising them on running their medical business. They're doing their taxes, right?
Yeah.
And so you can manage that.
Here's the other thing that's interesting, though. As a CPA firm, they fall under FTC safeguards rule. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? The FTC safeguards rule says you have to do a risk analysis.
Information security, with the risk analysis. Wow. Yeah. But I would think that
basically
risk analysis,
HIPAA.
Yeah, that risk analysis, you could kind of skirt around the edge. It is not as specific and detailed, I would think. However, that also brings to us where we often tell people, okay, HIPAA says that your risk analysis must consider PHI. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say you can't consider everything, Right. And we always say, like, look, if you use QuickBooks on your own server, include that, other stuff for that reason. So I don't know, but either way, it's the first time I can recall seeing a CPA firm supposedly just doing taxes and having 170,000 patient records.
Wow.
So we ain't talking little there either. I don't know. So community care physicians, that's their client. And the big stuff to get out of this is, that all just a touch. Everybody's like, well, I only need a little PHI. That's it. Now you're a BA.
Yeah, I've had that conversation before where somebody's like, I really only have these 10 people that we file insurance with. That's it. Everybody else pays cash. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You might as well take from everybody at that point.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. One is all it takes. It's the CPA firm and the IT. I got a guy and the MSP size. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
So, but the thing that people don't get, and here's the CPA. And if you're not vetting those vendors and asking them questions, well, first you have to know what a risk analysis should be. So there is that flaw if you don't know. But when the business associate either I don't want to say blows it off. They ignore it or downplay HIPAA. Let's call it that.
Yeah. Or oftentimes they think they know and they don't, which.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Oftentimes, as you pointed out, it's not that they're downplaying it. They really think they did it right.
Yeah.
But I will say, and I know this because of experience, and so do you, that sometimes people come to them and they go, no, this is what it looks like. But they don't want to believe it. They want to believe the easier version.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would too. That's what everybody wants to do. But that's it too. Is I la 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 la.
Yeah. I had an MSP recently. They were asking me about, our program and HIPAA for MSPs and Cardin and all that. And his comment was, well, this other vendor said they would do all that for us. And I was like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, you can take that approach, but in the long run, could be costly,
Yeah.
So, I mean, do it for me means I don't have to bother with anything, which means I'm not dealing with the risk. I'm not worried about implementation. I'm not doing any audits. And that was another thing that the email or email was the press release kind of thing. And it had in it a specific mention of, how did they put it? I'm trying to go find it right now. It said in it, the OCR recommends that HIPAA covered entities. So they've been putting this in here for a while, right? Afterwards, with here's what we recommend. Identify where PHI is located in the organization, including how it enters, flows through, and leaves the information systems. Okay, that's pretty clear. Periodically conduct and update as needed a risk analysis and develop and implement risk management measures to address identified risk, blah, blah, blah. Ensure audit controls are in place to record and examine information system activity. Implement regular reviews. Utilize mechanisms to authenticate. Encrypt in transit and at rest. I noticed that. Used to, yeah. And incorporate lessons learned from incidents into your security management and provide workforce members, here's a very key piece, with regular HIPAA training that is specific to the organization and to the workforce members' respective job duties.
Yeah, I don't know too many people who do that.
And that's just it. You're not training people on your policies and procedures or what audit controls you have in place, or how is it that that them doing it for you is gonna know where all your PHI is moving through.
They're not.
Yeah. So anyway, you're right. So how did that go? Have you heard from them again?
Of course not. I think the last thing I said was, I really don't think that we're going to be a good fit for you. That's the route you want to take. Yeah, we're going to be too much for you.
Yeah. Because if you're looking for that, we can't do that. That's just,
Yep.
I can't. I either want to do it right or not do it with you. It's kind of the way I look at it. That's why we do those things. So, but I mean, you look at this, and the other thing is, people don't realize, and these BAs should realize, that when there's a problem that happens in your little house, it ripples out. It's a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you call it the butterfly effect, in fact, it becomes a tsunami to some people. Just ask. If you're in that supply chain, it could impact in both directions even.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that's the bad part, but it's even worse that those the lawsuits that we talk about. I mean, boom, they're filed right away. Yeah, and many of them get dismissed. Some of them settle, but the big picture issue is that both the CPA firm and community care physicians were sued.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are being sued, you don't want somebody else's lawyer representing you. You got to have your own lawyer representing you. And yeah, even if it does get, dismissed, you're still looking at years to get it done.
Yeah, it's still costly. Yeah. I mean, that's always been my view of it. It's like, even if I'm right 100%, it's still going to cost me a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Just having to deal with the legal system, is a challenge. And when you're facing, if you're either, you got to feel bad for whoever ends up involved in it that didn't do anything but hire that other person. So it could be the BAs hired somebody, could be the CEs hired somebody, but they're the ones that are in this lawsuit, and they literally, the only thing they did was hire these people and trust them. That's the second thing. They did two things. They hired them and trusted them.
Mm-hmm. Which, hopefully you can trust your CPA.
It's just kind of, that kind of gets in a gray area. But when we talk about, when we're teaching people about whether it's in the boot camp or elsewhere, managing your business associates, this is why we say you don't just sign the contract and sign the BAA. Now we're talking contracts, so let's be clear, David. We are not offering legal advice in any way.
No, but I know a guy.
Yeah, we got a guy. We know him. He's funny too. But the thing that people always just assume these contracts mean nothing. They treat it like the terms and conditions when you sign up for an app. Click, click. Yes.
Just sign it.
Well, it all you have is a little piece of paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you at least stopped seeing that in some of those chat rooms?
Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of HIPAA chatter at all over the past probably 6 months or so. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's which makes me believe that they believe that they can outsource everything, or they're just staying away from it. And I know sometimes people just don't even know what to ask, so they just don't ask anything.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. But it is interesting that it's been quiet for a while. Now, having said that too, I also know that right now getting new clients on has been a slog for almost everybody. So that might be part of the reason too. Is just people just aren't pulling the trigger on bringing in new MSPs at the moment.
Yeah, everybody's just kind of trying to manage where you are. And, don't rock the boat. The boat is already in rough seas. So
yeah, I think the biggest one I see right now is somebody says, and it's an MSP, and they'll usually say, I've got a XYZ client. It's funny how many times it's a dentist. I have an XYZ client. They need to be HIPAA compliant. What do I need to do? And I'm like, all right, you're like at step 6 right now. You need to go back because it's, let's talk about your own compliance, because you're going to put them in a state of breach immediately if you're doing this. And they often are like, yeah, but let's talk about my client.
Yeah, you're right though. That's where the risk analysis really, if you skip that risk analysis and you just start implementing things, that's just, where we're going to build a house, we're going to start with a hallway, and then we're going to do the kitchen, and then we're going to do this other room that we don't know what it's going to be, but we'll put a frame up, and in the meantime, somebody else can build the walls. We'll outsource that.
Yeah.
and the
then
foundation.
after we get done, we'll see if somebody can do the blueprints.
That's exactly. That's kind of like what you're doing there. It's like, it's not going to work. I don't know though. There's a house in our neighborhood. It's like, you can tell that over the years, they just go, here, let's just add another big chunk onto this part of the house. It doesn't have to just chunk. Add it on there. There you go. But that's it. That's you're starting in the middle. You're never going to,
it tells me that they see the issue as being more one-sided. Like I'm trying to solve an issue for my client. I'm not here to solve an issue that I have. And they don't put it together that the issue is holistic. Like if you go to your client and they do a proper risk analysis, it's going to point out that you're a problem, that you're a risk that they can't take. Like it's kind of why we need to get your house in order first.
Yeah, you got twofold there. So, and that is it, and those service level agreements, SLAs, we call them that, but the contract for services is what we mean when we're saying that. But those have the BAA references that it's like, in addition to these services, the BAA relates to these services I've agreed to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what's in the SLA about what they're doing, the BAA can sometimes not cover everything or conflict. So you need to know both, and you need to know these days, people are putting a lot in those BAAs. And if you're still using just the plain little basic template with a checklist, I've done all the bare minimums for HIPAA, you're not protected.
Right.
All you're doing is checking off the regulation requirement and not actually contractually protecting your business. I wonder how we could teach that. Could that be a hook? It's a thing. We never know how to teach things. But, the whole concept of being contagious, that's the holistic thing that you're talking about. Is they need to understand that the minute I touch this, I now have that disease. I don't know that's effective way to train either. But we do call it a chronic condition, so maybe that kind of goes with it. But it's important that you understand that as either side of that pendulum, you can get sucked up into a problem. Right? Yeah. If you're the business associate and they claim you didn't do that, we've seen those where, it's the business associate's fault. We should look that case up, see how it's going. It's their fault. And the IT provider's like, you never heard us to do that. You know, so if you don't know, it's going to be a mess. If anything goes wrong, you're risking your entire business for that.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things where it's never a problem until it is.
Yeah.
And when it is, it's bad.
We don't need no stinking backup. Until something goes wrong. But if you're not doing the work of the risk analysis, well, a real one, not the wave a magic wand and it appears version, but if you're not doing a real risk analysis in any small business today that has important data. Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were just talking about the salon, our friend that runs the salon, and we're doing it's the same concept. Is that, you know, if you're, I don't know, I'm just astonished with how little they pay attention to these contracts and how little they pay attention to asking questions. You're assuming, you know, it's, you know, you have no contract really that protects you, and you're letting somebody take your $1 million vehicle out for a ride, and they can drive it every day to work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we go through this all the time asking the same question, which is how can we possibly get people to pay attention to do this right? And I don't know. Nobody's cracked the nut on it because we're still working, not just us, but lots of other folks who still working on trying to get education out there that helps protect practices and move the needle. And we're still talking about the same thing we talked about a decade ago.
Plus
it's
more.
Still the same problem. Yeah. But when you talk about things like this, like, oh, we need to talk about doing a proper risk analysis. People are like, yeah, but what about AI?
That should be on it.
Ransomware. Right. Yeah. Yeah. But what about these other, that's my point is like, they're asking all the questions and I'm like, but you still have to start with the foundation.
That's all on there. That's where we start. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, well, that's another thing. I'm the group you know, one of our task group at HSCC is to try to figure out how to educate people that AI brings risks and that you should be doing a risk analysis. How much risk is this AI tool bringing and what am I doing to mitigate that risk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just first thing. But, you know, I run into this all the time, especially with the new clients. I come in, one of the first things I ask for is, can you give me a copy of your most recent risk analysis as it pertains to technology? Like, I don't have to have all of it. Just show me the parts I need to see. And I mean, they give me this look like I caught them like coming to class without their homework.
My dog ate my risk analysis.
Yeah. Well, what if I don't have one? Okay. Well, then we can start there. Let's work on getting you one. Well, what about AI? It's okay.
That's what we have to do, David, is write an AI agent that will do the risk analysis for you. So it just goes out there.
I think we just write an AI agent that everything they put in, it just keeps saying, please complete your risk analysis first and then come back.
Yeah. Oh, someday. This is again why I can't wait until I can just say, you know what, I am going to retire because this is crazy. It's crazy. And I would rather, I need to do something different.
I think you can pare your consulting down and everything. Like you could literally throw everything else out the window and just focus on doing the proper risk analysis.
Yeah, but that's time consuming. It's not easy, David.
I know, but that's just it. You're like, look, we do one thing and we do it well. All we do is risk analysis because most of you are never going to make it to step 2. This is all we do.
Well, I do know.
So we either do a risk analysis or we defend those who don't. Kind of.
I don't even know how. I don't know how. And what I hate to see is, where I'm flat out saying, look, I'm not offering legal advice because I can tell you the things to look for in a contract, but is that contract stable? Will it hold up in court? All of those things. I don't know. That's not my job. I know, like you and I both would, okay, these are the things we're agreeing to do business together. We want those in a contract and we want the contract to hold up in court. Okay. Mm-hmm. That second part is where you need the lawyer. Knowing the conditions is our negotiation. The lawyers may bring in things we haven't thought about, but the conditions and the things that we look for, those are the things that we are talking about. But then I have lawyers who will send a spreadsheet to a client and say, this is how you do a risk analysis, fill this out. And I'm like, okay. But what are you going to do? It is what it is, but it is interesting to see OCR tagging on us. Tag, you're it on the CPA. You're a HIPAA business associate. And I would assume that they knew they were. You would think that there's not enough information. We don't get enough information about what really happened.
Yeah.
To know
you'd
that.
hope so. But I mean, I have as recently as like 2 months ago was standing in a room full of CPAs. And I said, how many in here has, HIPAA that you have to deal with? And not a single person raised their hand. And I was like, okay, maybe, but I find that hard to believe that nobody in this entire room has to deal with HIPAA.
Exactly. But that again makes me ask, what were these folks doing if they were only doing tax services? So I don't understand, but clearly they had it. It's 170,000 patients. They had it. It didn't seem to be contested anywhere on the merit of that. So once you have it, but again, you could have 17 patients. You're a business associate. It doesn't matter.
You have one.
And you're a business associate. So that's the part that we think everybody needs to really understand. And often what we'll see is, folks that won't even understand they're providing services to someone way down the chain. Mm-hmm. And they don't ask about the services that their clients are providing, which now will make me. So imagine, so imagine.
I know where you're going with this.
You're the MSP, you go in, it's a CPA. I don't have to worry about any of that. And if they don't tell you that they have PHI because they're a CPA, and you think they would tell you if they do, but if they don't tell you, and then you host the data and you don't know, and you're accessing the servers and you don't know, then here you are technically catching the disease, the chronic condition, and until you see symptoms, you're not going to know. So it is something we've always been worried about, that happening.
Yeah. Yep. And, I do that, and I'm sure a lot of other MSPs do too, where you go in and one of your first questions is, what type of regulations do you fall under? What do you have? Or is, HIPAA, FTC safeguards, PCI, which that's another thing. But, I ask all these questions. What are you falling under? What frameworks might you already be doing or whatever, which nobody does. But anyway, you just want to know those questions. And you have to, in a lot of cases, make some assumptions that the client should know if they have regulatory compliance they have to be doing. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes they don't.
So this just is reiterating how important it is to actually understand what's going on in your supply chain. All of it. Because I know people that would tell us when we were asking for a list of vendors, they might tell us, oh, that's our CPA firm. All they do is taxes. And I would have to believe them, but I would say you need to put it on your list and confirm. What does your services agreement say? This is why you go back to what services are you buying from them?
Yep.
I still can't figure that part out. If it's really just taxes, why would they have it? But anyway. Enough of that. Enough.
Well, I will say in the front end of this, we did find out that the breach apparently happened on the 4th of December, 2019, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
They caught it on a Saturday on the 7th of December, Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, yeah.
So 3 days. They came in. 3 days later, set off the bomb. So that was pretty quick, considering that, dwell time is sometimes up to 9 weeks. This was quick. They got in and got out.
Well, in this case, it's been going on since 2019, which tells you other things,
Yep.
So, yeah. But
anyway.
It happened right before COVID hit, the before times.
Yeah.
When life,
BC.
when life was completely different than it is today.
You're right. Oh, man. All right. Well, that's our show for today, folks. If you didn't learn anything else you probably should have a risk analysis.
We hope.
And by probably, I mean you absolutely should.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Be sure to share this out on your favorite social media site. Give us a rating and review. We haven't asked for those in a while. We appreciate those.
Yeah. We should think about that.
Yeah. All right. Be sure to join us again next week. Remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.